Everybody's been telling us how great their medlar harvest is this year, and we're absolutely amazed as well. Our tree is groaning in fruit. This is Medlar Nottingham, and not only is there much more fruit, but the fruits themselves are about twice as big as the fruits that we had last year. So they are related to Crataegus in that they're both in the Rosaceae family. These, however, will need bletting before you can eat them, otherwise the taste is just too astringent. Depending on the temperature, you can blet them for a few weeks. The warmer it is, the quicker they'll blet. So we make ours into a medlar jelly. It's the middle of November now, and picking our medlars. Picking them now, we don't want them to blet on the tree because they might fall to the ground, so we're picking them now and we'll blet them inside. Here's one that's already started to blet on the plant, and you can see it's quite soft and squishy compared to these ones here, which are still rock solid. So we'll put those inside, the hard ones inside, and blet those there. When it's bletted, it literally oozes out like this. It just tastes like a kind of appley pear flavour. It makes a really delicious jelly.
So this morning we're processing medlars. We had a huge harvest, and the problem is differentiating between those that haven't bletted and those that have. So sometimes it's really obvious. So this fruit, you can see it's brown, discoloured around the outside, and if you squeeze it, it's got classic bletted oozy goo coming out, and that's how you want them before you start processing. But it's not always so obvious. So what I've realised is that even though the fruit might seem hard, so when you squeeze it, it's rock hard, the end's really hard, if you use your nail on your thumb and just press in the stalk end, that'll give you more idea of what's going off inside. So, as if I just go through a few, that one is really hard, so I'll just pop that one over there, and I'll just go through them all. That's quite hard, so I'll save that one for a few more days, that one for a few more days. Now this one, on the face of it, looks like there's no bletting going off, but by pressing the stalk end I can feel there's a lot of give there and it's quite soft. So I'll just show you inside, so you can see there's actually a decent amount of bletting gone off. So I can process those today rather than waiting. Whereas the one that's hard at the stalk end, you can see there's virtually no bletting. So it would be wise to leave those a bit longer. Otherwise, the jelly that you make is very astringent and not very tasty at all. So two methods that we've used this year are your classic big saucepan. Don't put too much water in there, and you boil that very slowly for an hour or so, and then you tip the whole contents into a jelly bag and you let it strain overnight or for a day, and then you process it. But we're lucky enough to have one of these steamers, and so the last batch I did in the classic way. I've never tried it medlars in the steamer, so I'm giving that a go. So we've got the pan at the bottom, heating the water, steam goes up, right through to a big basket in the top, and I'll just show you in there. So in there is the medlar. It's been in there for about an hour now, so it's actually reduced quite a lot. And then this middle basket here, you can see has a tube attached to it, and then once the processing time is over, I can siphon off the juice. You can see it filling the tube now. So the steam extracts the juice from the medlar, and at that point, if you're organised enough, it's hot enough to process straight away, because it's as near 100 degrees as you can get. So I could make the jam or jelly straight away. If I was even more organised, I could put the sugar inside the basket and it would be ready. The jam would be virtually processed on the way out, because I just pour it into my jam pan and then heat it up a little bit more until gel setting point. And there we go. So I'm going to see how this does in the steamer versus what I did earlier in classic jelly bag. And the reason I'm trying the steamer is I didn't get a very good set on my last batch using the jelly bag method. So I'll be testing for pectin to see how it does when the steaming's over. So in the past, and even now occasionally, we have problems getting a good set on our jams and jellies. Some fruits are worse than others, but medlar is one fruit that we have had lots of problems with. Many evenings have been spent boiling away copious amounts of fruity, sugary pulp to no avail. So what I'd like to show here is part method and part experiment, just to demonstrate why we use the techniques that we do and why they're important. Once you add the rubbing alcohol to the fruit juice, you get an almost instant reaction, but the longer you leave it, the better the prediction will be of the eventual fruit set in your jam or your jelly. So what I'd like to show now is the effects of adding the rubbing alcohol. So the first one is the medlar juice, and this is before adding lemon juice. And what you can see is it's a little bit lumpy, but the lumps aren't coalesced into a big blob by any means. So from that, I would be thinking about adding some lemon juice. But what's interesting is you might have thought at first that what you're adding is pectin. But so this is lemon juice with the rubbing alcohol, and as you can see, there's absolutely no lumps in there whatsoever. So the lemon juice isn't adding pectin that you're missing in the first place. What the lemon juice is doing is actually reducing the pH. So it's making it more acidic, and that's enabling the pectin molecules to lump together. And I'll just show that now as a comparison. So this is the Medlar juice with the lemon juice added. And I think you can see it's coming out really just as one big blob. So the problem we were having with our fruit set wasn't the fact that the pectin wasn't present, it was the fact that the pectin wasn't able to combine with other pectin molecules to form the jelly. And I think you can see there that, and this is 2 tablespoons per 600 milliliters of fruit juice. And I can see before I even start heating up to make the jelly that I'm going to get a good set there. As a comparison, I've got some crabapple juice here, because my initial thought was that I could add crabapple juice to the Medlar to increase the pectin level, and that would give me a better set. But as we've just seen, I don't need to. But I'll just show what happens with crabapple, and I think you can see it's sliding out and it's just like a big blob of jelly. So we all know that apples are high in pectin, and we can see that here, particularly crab apples. So the story is I need to reduce the acidity of my Medlar juice to enable the better set. And it's not the fact that the pectin isn't present to start with. So Medlar juice on its own, it's, you know, slightly lumpy. Medlar juice with lemon juice, and we've got far more pectin able to form jelly than without. So while I'm waiting for my next jelly to come to temperature, I thought I'd mention a few techniques that we use to delay production or stagger production. So it's all well and good producing copious amounts of juice, but then when you're faced with processing it all at the same time, that can be quite daunting. And actually what we've found is that by storing each individual juice, we can create our own blends. We're not wasting sugar, and we also realised through experimentation that freezing the juice or freezing the fruit in the first place has a detrimental effect on the amount of pectin or the usefulness of the pectin. So then you have to add extra pectin, and if that's in the form of apple, then that affects the flavour as well. So if you can avoid the freezing process, we found that to be advantageous. So a few methods that we've used, we we're going through the remainder of these bags that we have. It's absolutely great way to store juice. They're basically wine bags or juice bags, and you can pasteurize the juice in these bags. They've got an airlock tap on them, and you can just decant as much as you need as and when, and they'll last for months and months and months in these bags. The problem with them is they're not recyclable. So they're a one-use container, if you like. So it kind of goes against our environmental credentials. So we've moved away from those and more into bottling. And these are some new bottles, jars that we got quite recently. These are Weck jars. Kilner jars are also very useful. So in here is pasteurized Medlar juice. It's already got the lemon juice as part of the recipe when we were determining whether what the pectin levels were in the juice. So we've already put the lemon juice in there, so I can either blend this or I can make a jelly from this as on its own, and it will store in here for about a year. So here is the last batch of Medlar jelly that we made, and I thought I'd be all gung-ho and just go straight to it without doing the pectin test beforehand. And as you can see, I've got a nice thick syrup. I was going to reboil this and try and reset it, but actually it's so thick that it's a really nice drizzling sauce for yogurt or ice cream. So I've only got a few jars, so we'll leave that. This top bag here of juice is japonica juice, and for those of you who are not familiar with japonica, or Schnommerlies, its genus name, then I suggest you source them, because it makes the most amazing jam and jelly. It's really fragrant, and it's ripe very late in the year, so it doesn't require processing immediately. You can harvest it. It can gradually ripen in your sitting room while evolving all these lovely fragrances. It's kind of citrusy in flavour, and in fact it apparently has more vitamin C than citrus fruit, so if you minus the sugar, it's probably quite good for you. So just a quick word on jars. Better give that a stir. I can just see it's just starting to bubble. So a quick word on jars. We use these pickle jars and these pasta jars. Now, we've used different techniques to get rid of the smell. These don't smell of anything, maybe the last jam that was in there. And because these had garlic in, when they were initially washed in the dishwasher and cleaned, they still smell of garlic. And the best technique we've used is basically just we sit them on the shelf in our greenhouse throughout the summer, and by the end of the summer they don't smell at all. A quick way, which does work to a greater extent, is using half vinegar and water in warm water, and we put the lids in, say, a bigger jar and fill that, and we leave it for several days, and then they go back into the dishwasher and process, and that seems to get rid of the garlic smell, but not necessarily the pickling smell. So the greenhouse method, leave it to sunshine, seems to be the way to go. So I better get on with this jelly. Come on now. Consume. 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 I'm focused. Consume. Consume. Consume.
Right, take 3. Action, go. Ooh, yummy.